The biggest teachers' unions are holding a national strike in England today in a row over pay, pensions and workloads, with another strike expected later in the month.
The National Union of Teachers say that the strike is a last resort as the government are not willing to answer teachers' concerns. Assistant Secretary to the NUT, John Dixon, is here now and believes that the strike is a necessity as teachers' needs are simply being ignored. Katie Hopkins, on the other hand, says that teachers should be banned from striking as it's disruptive for pupils and parents, and that there are people more deserving of a pay rise, and they both join us now. John, first of all, let's clarify why the teachers are on strike.
Well, could I just say from the outset that the last thing that teachers want to be doing is to be out on strike, and it is with a heavy heart that our members today feel they've been forced to go down that particular route.
I think that many parents watching this will find that little consolation.
Well, the fact is that the dispute that we've now got with the Secretary of State over pay, pensions and workload has been ongoing now for well over a year. We've tried every avenue we can to get productive talks going with the Secretary of State, but...
What do you want? What aren't you getting?
Well, what we want from the Secretary of State is some meaningful negotiations. On the pensions issue, we've said to him, we want to actually have you doing a proper valuation of what the teachers' pension scheme was, which we believe was affordable, and that we believe there needs to be a proper and thorough look at whether teachers can actually carry on working to 68 and beyond. We want him to just call a halt to putting these new initiatives, dismantling pay arrangements, and now threatening the working conditions of teachers, and have productive talks about that so we can try and actually find a resolution.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
Well, there was a brief meeting with our General Secretary back, I think it was in June, but what Michael Gove has said, he's refusing to talk about any of the substantive issues. All he'll talk about is implementation, and frankly, that is not going to help us find a resolution, and that is why teachers are so angry and concerned, and why they feel they've needed to take this action today.
Katie, Michael Gove says that he condemns the action, and the government says such strikes will disrupt pupils' learning, inconvenience parents and damage the reputation of teachers.
Absolutely. And you know, there's going to be working mums and dads all over the country in this particular area that's impacted by this strike, who've had to take their day off today, who probably have that day unpaid because they're now looking after their children, because these guys are going on strike. And you notice the one word we didn't hear in all of that was children, or children's needs, or what children might need to be doing in school. It's all about money in their pockets, what impacts on their pay, what impacts on their pension. And for people, mums up and down the country that just want their children inside of schools learning, a strike is not the way to do this. Teaching children, do you know what, if you don't like something, have a collective strop. Go outside and shout about it. That is not the sort of message we're looking for our teachers to give our children.
So is that true? Is that at the heart of it? Is it the pupils' interests, or is it money?
It is at the pupils' interests as well, and the idea that teachers who have gone into teaching and have actually chosen teaching as a career and a vocation go into it for anything other than they feel a real commitment to working with children and improving their life chances and improving standards is an absolute joke. Now let me finish, Katie. The issue here is that teachers are being hampered in terms of doing the best for their pupils by the kind of unnecessary bureaucracy that's being loaded on them. Teachers work hard, and they're quite happy to work hard. They work evenings and weekends and during their holidays, preparing work, assessing work, looking at new things to do with their children, planning new curriculum, and they're fine with that, and they want to do that. But the Secretary of State keeps piling on additional bureaucracy, expecting them to prove what they're doing.
Everybody works hard, John.
Yeah, of course they
Everybody
do.
works hard,
but you want to
John,
do productive work.
Teachers need to recognise.
Doing work that undermines the teaching and learning of their pupils.
Teachers need to recognise that the world
is why
has
there
changed.
is a problem.
The world has changed. We all have to work harder. We all have to work longer hours. John sits here representing the NUT. Only 22% of their membership came out to vote for this, and 85% of them said, yes, we'll strike. So hardly anybody wanted to do this strike. Teachers being kept out of school.
In a recent poll, 61% of those questioned backed linking pay to performance, and the majority opposed the walkout. So not everyone is behind this. Do you know how many people have walked out today? Has this been a success?
We think it's on the information we're getting, and there'll be a proper assessment when we see the results tomorrow. We think the overwhelming majority of our members and those of our colleagues in our sister union, the NASUWT, have come out. Not because they're loving this and they haven't got the interest of their pupils at the heart of this. It's because they feel that the long-term damage to the education service, if these constant changes are imposed, is going to be far more of a damage than actually one day of strike action. And
Katie,
that anger and concern is there.
Katie, would you concede that a teacher's job is very different to the job that it used to be? It's not just a case of standing in front of a class. They're often social workers. We're reading in the newspapers today that many parents are finding it difficult or unwilling to feed their children, and they're going in and the teacher's feeding them in the morning. They're doing much, much more
A
than
teacher's
they've ever
role
needed
has
to do.
changed, and clearly we need to pull some of the social services element away from teaching, but the fundamental points remain that you should not be going out on strike in this country. We all have to accept, as they do all over the public sector, changes are going to be made to pay and pensions. Children need to be in school being taught. Parents are fined £60 for unauthorised absences, and funny enough, teachers can just walk out whenever they feel like it. And he says, if you listen, success. We'll judge the success by how many people went out on strike. Is that how teachers now judge success? Because if it is, it's a crying shame for this country, and I wish Thatcher was back to crush these unions like she did before.
Well,
Katie makes it sound like you just walked out on strike at the sort of first.
They have.
Something's gone on.
They did.
But
I think
that's
there's
not the case.
there has been. We have to be
isn't the
balanced. There's
first
been
resort.
extensive
This isn't
attempted
the first
negotiation, apparently.
it's absolutely the last resort, and the idea, well, you know, obviously those who think there shouldn't be unions, that people shouldn't have any rights, well, that's a view. Fundamentally, we think it is you know, a very good thing and part of a grown-up democratic society, that people should have a right to belong to a trade union and be able to, as a last resort, if all other avenues have failed, take that last resort of strike action. But the interests of children are at the heart.
Being at home.
Are at the heart
John,
of all that teachers are looking at, because they're looking at the future. And the idea that teachers aren't averse to change is an absolute ridiculous concept. Teachers have had massive change over the last few years and are at the forefront of changes because they want to see the children's life chances improve and working together.
Where does this go now? It would appear that the government is particularly intransigent on this issue. You are struggling to get you've had negotiations, but as you said to me before we started this interview, not on the points that you wanted raised. So where do we go next? If they won't back down, more strikes?
Well, we hope that there will be some more pressure put on Michael Gove to actually start talking, because that's what we're asking for. And how unreasonable is it to say to the Secretary of State, come and have realistic meetings about the issues that are the subject of the dispute.
But
aren't you saying
to him, come and discuss with us what we want? I mean, he said, this is going to happen, and that's that. I'll discuss anything you want. I'm simplifying this, of course. But as far as those key negotiating points are concerned, no, you can't have it. So what you want is a meeting to discuss the things so you get your own way.
No, we want to have real negotiations. I mean, negotiations are about give and take. They're not about one side saying, this is what's going to happen, and it doesn't matter what you do, how bad it is for you, what that's going to do to your pay and conditions and workload, how that's going to affect the children that you teach, because that is at the heart of what teachers are about. If it's all about, we're not going to talk anything, and there's going to be no negotiation, then that's a problem.
Final 10-second word.
This is not the way that we want our teachers to teach our children. We want teachers back in classrooms teaching our children. Striking is wrong. People in the police and the prison services, they don't strike. And I think the NUT is just a mob mentality, getting people out on strike. It's megaphone diplomacy, and it's entirely not the way Britain needs to move forward.
We have to leave it there, unfortunately. Thank you. We'd very much like to know what you think. Are you a teacher watching this? Are you agreeing with Katie, or are you jumping up and down screaming? Then please let us know, and we'll get your comments after the break as well.